What's up, everybody? Kris here, owner and pitmaster at A&M BBQ. Today we're going to be taking you through our brisket process. That's from the time we get them on. So we got them on early this morning, and then we're going to show you how we boat, and we're going to show you how we finish, and the entire process and everything in between. So you guys stay tuned for a fun episode and watch how we cook our briskets here at A&M BBQ. We'll see you soon. Peace. Y'all better have some, man. Stay tuned. Welcome back on this episode of Smoking with Austin. So now we're gonna show you how we load our briskets up before we start our cooks in the morning. Right now it's roughly about 4:15, 4:30 in the morning. So super early we get here to get started doing this. We're gonna load these bad boys up, and then we'll show you the rest of the process pretty soon. So let's start loading. So as we load our briskets, I typically start from the smallest in the front to the largest in the back. But based off how we trim, as you can see, they're all roughly around the same size. We pre-season the night before, so that way it saves us a little bit of time as we come in the morning, and you don't have to spend so much time getting these things seasoned up, and we can get them on. And sometimes on a good day, go back to sleep. So when putting these on, I always try to make sure that I have at least a hand or finger gap of space when loading these briskets on. So that way I can kind of get as many as I can in one cook. But of course, as they start to cook, they'll start to shrink, and we'll just readjust throughout the cook as needed. All right, last brisket going on right now. So after we get this last one on, we're gonna start the fires and show you how we go through that process. So I'll be right back with you in just a moment. You guys hang in there now. At this point, we've gotten all our briskets on. We have a 32 count at this point. So we're gonna start our cold smoke phase. So we'll start out with Kingsford match light, making a nice bed of coals, and then we'll start to A-frame and stack our logs up to start this cold smoke process and let these smoke for probably about the next 3 to 4 hours until they impart a nice heavy amount of smoke on the meat. That's where we get our nice deep smoke ring throughout the cook. So let's get this thing loaded up, and we'll show you how to start a fire. We'll lay them out nice and flat. Give them a light. So this method we picked up from our buddies Lone Mountain Barbecue by way of Bar A Barbecue in Montgomery, Texas. So as everybody knows, when cooking brisket, you want to try to get as much rest as you can, but this method allows you to be able to do a long cold smoke and not have to sit here and babysit it. So I'll give you guys a little bit of secret on this cook. So what we have right here are wine barrel chips. So we're going to take these red wine chips and infuse them into the cook as we start this process. So throughout this cold smoke phase, it's going to have a great penetration of wine flavor, color, everything. After this cold smoke phase is done, and for Sonoma County, I think that's really fitting to have red wine smoked brisket. So now our fire's starting to move pretty good. So I'm going to start to stack logs in and get everything nice and stacked up so that way we can shut her up. So from there, I'll go pretty much 4 deep, starting at the bottom, and then I'll just start to stack as I go up. So I leave a nice little space in between, so that way as the fire starts to build and these bottom logs get hot, it can continue to breathe. So now I'll just drop these other logs right in between each space and continue stacking all the way up. And again, smaller logs on the bottom, bigger logs toward the top. So at this point, the fire is burning, so we're not gonna shut the door until this fire is self-sustained and is burning on its own, and we don't have to worry about it going out. So we're just gonna let this kind of burn for a little bit, let the coals really heat up, and then once that happens, we'll shut the doors, we'll close the dampers down to probably about 90%, 80% closed. All right, so after 9 hours, we'll kick the temperature up to 300 degrees. We'll get these things in a boat, and we'll see you back here pretty shortly. Have a good one. All right, it's about 3:30 in the afternoon. We started at 4:30, 5 o'clock this morning when we got briskets on. So at this point, they should be ready to wrap. Let's open it up and give a look-see and see what they look like. Nice. Exactly what you want. Nice set bark. So what we look for at this point when we're getting ready to wrap it is we'll go through and give them a feel test and see and notice how this is kind of soft. The fat's kind of moved. You can feel the fat starting to render out. It's nice and gold color underneath. So that tells me that these briskets are ready to wrap and they've released as much water as they need to. And now we're gonna bolt these things up. I got my man Tyler right here in the back that's gonna come in and help me get these wrapped up. And then we'll see you guys soon in a bit. And then after that, finished product coming soon. Hang tight.
It's almost like wrapping a baby.
Yeah, it is.
You know that swaddle method
like
when you wrap your newborn baby?
Little swaddle.
Something like that.
Little swaddle brisket.
Brisket swaddling here at A&M BBQ.
Right. This is a brisket swaddling class. So with this foil bolt, the whole objective is for this front to protect the flat as it continues to finish out and get even more tender while rendering out any remaining fat that's left in this brisket, leaving it nice and dark on the top by the time that they're done. So we got this method. As I was taking my barbecue journey and studying other pit masters and things that they do, and notice Chud Barbecue does this, and it's been very effective for us in the process and how we cook our briskets. It helps us render out the fat, maintain some tallow in the bottom, so that way that brisket stays nice, moist, and juicy. After we do put them in the boat, we flip them around the opposite way. So with the flat facing the fire, because the flat tend to sometimes lag a little bit, the point will always typically finish before, because it's facing the fire for the majority of the cook. So at this point, we flip it around and let that flat finish off, and they somewhat should finish around the same time. Within a few degrees difference of each other. That's typically how it ends up being. But regardless of what, we pulled it when the flats hit about 2.5, 2.10. Sometimes it can vary, but always go by probe tenderness. The probe sometimes will give you a number saying it's done, but feel for yourself to know that it's nice and tender, that you don't have any give when that probe goes in and out. because I'd hate for you to do all this work, babysit this all this time to pull and have a tight brisket. How do I know? Because I've done it. You learn from mistakes. That's the only way to grow.
Man, reaching for those things. Woo. Being short is one thing in the barbecue world.
All right, so you've watched us trim, you've watched us season, you've watched us get these things on and go through the cook. So now, last part, we'll see you when we get the finished product. Until the next step. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. So as promised, it's been 12 hours since these briskets have come off. We've let them rest, have a nice long rest. So now we're gonna open them up, give it a slice, and see how we did on the cook. So that is what our smoked brisket looks like after it's rested for 12 hours. And so now at this point, we're gonna take some of our smoked tallow. We're gonna pour it right across the top. Then we're gonna pat that in so that way you soften up the bark a little bit before we get into it and slice. Bark looks really well, nice and set. All right, so here's your flat and here's your point. So we're gonna go right in the middle of this here. Notice how you see here the fat's completely rendered on the inside, nice and soft. So now let's take out a couple slices and see how we did. Some really nice slices, nice bend. Come right apart. Let's take a look at the point, see how we did there. One more slice off the point. Almost your fourth slice in. There we go. Fat's nice and gold, nice and rendered. We didn't blow out our point. Everything is intact. So yes, super happy, super happy. So let's give it a taste and see how we did. I would say that's about right. All right, everybody, so at this point, you've seen every phase of our cook. You've seen it from the time that we put them on, to the time that we wrap, to the time that we take them off, let them rest, and slice. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Smoking with Austin. And if you like this content, hit the like button, subscribe on our Instagram page and Facebook page. Give us a follow on all platforms. So as always, y'all better have some. Have a good one. We'll see you soon. Y'all better have some, man. Stay tuned. This technique is something that needs to continue to be passed on from generation to generation. So have fun, live, laugh, love, and smoke meat, man. That's all I can tell you. See you soon.
One more take of that.
I bust that last one. Got right to the end.